French Polynesia, the islands of Tahiti. This name sounds like a dream for millions of travelers around the world. It evokes spectacular beaches, blue lagoons, an abundance of life, and reminds us of the idea of paradise. We think of this when we imagine French Polynesia. However, this doesn't really come to mind.
Avec un, il peut ramasser des millions d'euros. Avec un.
Et ça, t'en as des milliers de l'autre côté?
Des centaines, ouais, c'est sûr. Ouais. La côte est.
Did you know that rafts filled with garbage wash up on the beaches of our Polynesian islands every single day? They're everywhere. There are so many of them that we come across this debris on every single island. We see them when we go diving, we find them when we walk on the beach. They're here in every garden. No matter where we go throughout French Polynesia, we will find traces of their presence. This is the result of an intensive and highly destructive fishing practice that takes place in international waters outside French Polynesian borders, far from everyone's eyes. At the moment, all of this is perfectly legal. The companies responsible for this have no obligation to recover the fishing equipment they abandon at sea. So even if we know who they are, it doesn't change anything. They have every right to do this. To protect its territory and given the urgent need to change international regulations, the Department of Marine Resources in French Polynesia has decided to organize an expedition in order to assess the situation, bring back footage of the problem, and better understand the extent of this phenomenon. Our team was sent to the heart of the Pacific Ocean, throughout the northernmost island of French Polynesia, the Marquesas archipelago. To carry out this mission, we boarded a catamaran with diving equipment, underwater cameras, and drones, which will allow us to explore the coast and reef of these islands, including the most remote and difficult to access areas. Our goal is to find and record the fishing gear that has washed up and to bring back images showing the scale of the problem. But what exactly are we looking for? All this industrial fishing material coming to us from the open ocean, what is it? This garbage we see everywhere is called a drifting fish aggregating device, also known as drifting FAD. Fishing industries have replicated a phenomenon that has occurred naturally in the ocean since the dawn of time. The ocean, as you move away from the coast, is a vast saltwater desert. Any object floating in the ocean, whether it's a tree trunk or a shipwreck, will turn into a small floating ecosystem, a bit like an oasis in the middle of the desert. Fish and various predators will approach to feed. Fishing companies artificially did the same thing by dropping rafts made of plastic, buoys and nets, which they leave drifting in the ocean for months, so that an ecosystem can develop around them. The goal is to attract large schools of tuna in the middle of the ocean so they can be caught easily and quickly. In order to find the rafts, each fish aggregation device is equipped with a waterproof GPS beacon, which also includes a satellite communication system, a sounder, solar panels, and large batteries to ensure long-term autonomy. Some rafts will attract large schools of tuna, while others will have fewer. That's why drifting FAD beacons are equipped with a sounder, which will indicate the quantity of fish present below the raft to the boat that released them. Fishermen will only move for those that are truly worth it. When the fishing boat receives the signal and decides to go fishing on the drifting FAD, it will deploy huge nets and catch everything in the area at once. This technique is called purse seine fishing. The majority of tuna consumed worldwide is caught this way. It is estimated that between 50,000 and 60,000 drifting FADs are released into the Pacific each year. In total, about 10% of them are retrieved by the fishing vessels. The problem is that everything else is abandoned and drifts away. All these drifting FADs will therefore crash on an island or sink, and it's no one's responsibility to take care of them. To begin surveying drifting FAD debris, we asked ourselves where we had the most chances to find them. Mark, the captain of this expedition, organized our research plan.
Sur les deux petites plages qui sont là, 11 balises. Donc sur à peu près 50 mètres de côte, 11 balises.
Pour la phase de recherche de radeaux DCP en mer, ce qu'on a commencé par faire, c'est regarder un petit peu où étaient largués les DCP. Il faut savoir qu'ils sont largués entre 10 degrés nord et 10 degrés sud de l'équateur, à l'est de la Polynésie. De là, on a simplement regardé les vents et les courants dominants, et donc on s'est concentré sur les côtes au vent des Marquises pour faire notre prospection. Là où vraiment on va avoir le maximum de DCP qui vont arriver depuis le nord-est sur les différentes îles.
Our team has spent weeks sailing around the coast of various islands in the Marquesas archipelago, searching for drifting FADs. We plan to find out how many parts of stranded rafts we can find across the northern islands of the archipelago. To help us find this debris, we follow the coastline, guided by a drone. It allows us to inspect every beach and cliffs, taking photos and videos.
Parce qu'un truc qu'on voit là aux Marquises, c'est que les DCP ils s'échouent sur les plages. Ils s'échouent à des endroits où ils peuvent s'accrocher, là où il y a de la végétation, du sable et tout. Mais dans les rochers, ici, pas tellement. Ou alors
Non.
ils arrivent mais ils se font défoncer.
Ce genre de falaise, il n'y a pas vraiment de DCP en fait.
Non.
C'est plus sur les plages comme il y a ici. Non Marc, on va pas bitcher le bateau.
Et voilà. T'as vu comme je fais ça bien maintenant?
We quickly understood that there were few areas where drifting FADs could run aground here. The Marquesas are islands made up of steep cliffs. Plastic debris don't have enough space to remain stranded. The waves continually hit the coast and sweep away anything that could wash up here. But we still find a few places with vegetation and rocks that allow plastic to remain out of the water.
Une fois que le drone a repéré un radeau échoué sur la plage, le but du jeu pour nous, ça va être d'aller voir sur terre ce qui se passe.
Fais attention Marc, hein.
Pour ça, en fait, on envoie généralement une ou deux personnes à la nage. Le but, c'est que ces personnes arrivent sur la côte et puissent recenser à terre les différentes parties de DCP qu'on va avoir repérées par drone et celles qu'on n'aura pas vues. Donc généralement, on longe quand même les côtes, les plages sur une certaine distance. Et si c'est divers éléments, que ce soit des bouées, des filets, ce qu'on va faire, c'est qu'on va essayer d'empacter tout ça pour former un radeau.
Pas mal de DCP, des balises et des radeaux. J'en ai laissé un peu sur le bord là-bas, on va voir si je peux les récupérer, mais sinon, déjà on va essayer de regagner l'annexe. Voilà, 4 DCP à peu près. Allez!
Et une fois qu'on a passé on va dire la zone des vagues et des rouleaux, on rejoint le bateau-mer en tractant tout ça, tous ces éléments qui flottent à peu près, jusqu'au catamaran. On remonte sur le catamaran et après on peut disloquer les différentes parties et les mettre en sac pour qu'ils soient évacués plus tard.
Using the drone, we also found large beaches where many drifting FADs were stranded. Some of them were very isolated and inaccessible by boat or by road. We swam out to inspect them, but we always found far too much garbage to be able to bring everything back by sea. With such a spectacle, we couldn't just stand there and do nothing. We decided to get creative and find other solutions to get rid of all this trash. On Nukuhiva, the beach of Ha'atuatua isn't connected to any road. So we sailed to Anaho, the nearest village. We went to the locals and we asked, "Hey guys, can we rent all of your horses?" I know it's not a common question, but we'd like to ride to the other side of the island and collect all the drifting FADs we could find there. all this plastic that we collected, what is it exactly? We found many different types of debris. PVC pipes and buoys to make the structure float, for example. There were also nets wrapped around the raft to keep it all together, and a lot of GPS beacons. They are very important in the context of our expedition. Drifting FAD beacons are always marked with an identification number.
Ah, c'est là. M3 plus moins 5, 4, 2, 6, 1, 3.
Ils sont tout neufs.
Thanks to this information and the support of various international organizations, we were able to trace their origin and find the boats that dropped them. It seems that the majority of the waste arriving on Polynesian shores comes from the fishing fleet of Ecuador. But there are other nations as well, such as Mexico, Peru, Colombia, and the United States. Thanks to the debris we found on the coast, we were able to obtain a lot of information. On the other hand, there is almost always one part of the drifting FAD that seems to be missing. On the coast we inspected, we almost never found the nets that normally hang below the rafts. These nets are as long as a football field, so they can't be completely lost. Where are they?
On s'est demandé, après avoir prospecté ce qu'il y avait sur les côtes, et en se rendant compte qu'il manquait des parties importantes de DCP, vu qu'il y avait principalement que des radeaux, où était le reste, et pour ça on a décidé d'aller mettre la tête dans l'eau. On est parti en prospection en apnée, mais également en plongée bouteille. On s'est intéressé aux pointes rocheuses qui dépassaient, sur lesquelles les déchets pouvaient s'arrêter. On s'est intéressé aux bas de falaise ou aux entrées de baie, et là il se trouve qu'on a quand même trouvé beaucoup de choses. On a trouvé qu'en fait, sur la côte, c'est une infime partie des DCP qui arrivent, parce qu'il y en avait au moins autant qui étaient arrêtés avant par le récif ou par les rochers et qui coulaient sur place. Donc, par curiosité, après avoir trouvé de nombreux DCP dérivants qui étaient ancrés au fond et qui étaient coulés en entier, on a essayé d'en remonter certains. Et on s'est bien rendu compte que quand c'était sur du sable, ça allait être tout à fait possible. Mais dès que votre DCP dérivant est pris sur de la roche ou sur du corail, il n'y a plus grand chose à faire. Ils se sont bien rendu compte que le travail, s'il devait être fait, ça serait d'empêcher ces DCP d'arriver sur les côtes. Parce qu'une fois qu'ils sont sur les côtes, malheureusement, soit on les récupère de suite, soit après quelques mois, quelques années, il n'y a plus rien à faire et elles seront là pour des milliers d'années.
We find remnants of drifting FADs on almost every dive we do. There's so many now that it's impossible to visit French Polynesia and miss them. Traces of their presence can be found in every house, in every garden, and on every island. Hammocks, nets, flower pots. Everyone knows what a drifting FAD is in French Polynesia. Every Polynesian fisherman has faced a drifting FAD in their life, whether it's stranded on the coast or while they're sailing.
Je me suis fait avoir déjà plusieurs fois sur mon hélice alors.
Ah, tu te les as pris dans le bateau?
As part of our mission, we organize public meetings with the population of different islands in the Marquesas archipelago. People are deeply concerned about this issue and have been collecting debris they find for many years.
C'est les deux plages.
Ah, les deux plages.
We would have never been able to complete our mission without them. They guided us and taught us a lot of things. As garbage management is very complicated in the islands, people are forced to recycle them or accumulate at home.
T'as des parcs en haut et t'as fait des clôtures avec, quelque chose comme ça? Oh, bah t'as bien fait. Là, c'est mieux si tu les utilises que dans l'eau.
If the inhabitants of the Marquesas did not already spend all this time collecting waste, their islands would become public dumps for industrial fishing companies. We are told that we can see what happens if no one picks up the trash that arrives daily. The Marquesas archipelago is made up of 14 islands, but only 6 are inhabited. All the others are rarely visited by humans. Islands such as Mootane, Motuone, Hatutu, Eyao, or even Hatuiti. We decided to set sail and explore these pristine islands far from any human habitation. As we set out, we have no idea what we're gonna find. Are these islands really covered in rubbish as far as the eye can see? We explored reefs that almost no human ever visits. The fish were so curious that they were following us. But while sailing along the northeast-facing coast, we found this infamous beach filled with rubbish as far as the eye can see. Without the population to regulate the incoming waste, we are faced with an accumulation of debris with no limit. And underwater, it's exactly the same. In the end, we recorded the presence of more than 400 drifting FADs residues on the 9 islands we visited in the Marquesas archipelago. If we compare it to the side of the coasts we explored, that's an average of about 1 drifting FAD running around every 150 meters or so. And that's not counting all those that are not found underwater. We will never be able to collect all the drifting FADs on the reefs and the beaches of the islands of French Polynesia. It's too late now. There is way too much. However, all the data and images we collected during our mission across the islands were used by the country to defend its interests. French Polynesia participate in international commissions that regulate the practice of seine fishing. Thibault, who is in charge of offshore fishing projects for the Department of Marine Resources in French Polynesia, joined us for part of our expedition throughout the Marquesas.
On va les prendre en photo un par un.
Ah, ok.
Est-ce que tu te souviens où est-ce que tu les as récupérés chacun?
Non, j'ai récupéré avec des copains.
Shortly after our mission, he traveled to Fiji to represent our country on these committees, where he was able to denounce this practice and demand that the situation change.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Thibault Tellier, je travaille à la direction des ressources marines de Polynésie française et je suis actuellement à la WCPFC et c'est dans cette commission qu'est réglementée la pêche à la seine. C'est cette pêcherie-là qui déploie des DCP dérivants. Et donc l'objectif pour la Polynésie française, c'est bien sûr de faire cesser ce flux incessant de DCP dérivants qui viennent s'échouer sur nos côtes. On milite dans cette commission de manière à adopter la biodégradabilité des DCP dérivants pour réduire leur impact quand ils s'échouent.
C'est cadeau ça.
Mais aussi et surtout, on milite ici pour que l'industrie de la pêche à la seine assume ses responsabilités et récupère ses propres DCP dérivants avant qu'ils ne s'échouent en Polynésie française.
And while we wait for the laws to change and for this trash to stop coming at us, what can we do? Well, we pick up some of what's lying around and recycle it creatively. Like at our place at the Bounty Lodge in Rangiroa, where we collect drifting FAD debris to build a vegetable garden and grow our own food. It doesn't solve the problem, but at least it helps clean the beaches and reefs of the trash that's already there. Until the day when these huge rafts of plastic stop crashing on our shores. Thank you everyone for listening to our story. I hope that listening to me with my accent wasn't too bad. See you soon for new adventures.